Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Let's get started. The war has entered the fifth day, and as the death toll mounts and the situation in West Asia remains volatile to say the least, in fact, the conflict now seems to be spilling over beyond the region. While we piece together the latest coming in, what is the end game and what do these developments mean for you? What are the ripple effects on the oil markets and the overall economic fallout? What happens here onwards? Decoding all of this for you, along with a special guest joining us in just a bit. Also on the show for you tonight, we get you a special report on how Iranian drones are increasingly becoming a headache for the United States. We also get you the story of Khamenei's son. Is he going to be the next supreme leader of the country? All this and more coming up. The situation in West Asia continues to remain volatile, to say the least. The US and Israel continue to pound Iran. Tehran continues to retaliate. The conflict now, in fact, has extended beyond West Asia. In a massive escalation, the US Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, announced that an Iranian warship was sunk by an American torpedo near Sri Lankan waters. And this marks the first sinking of a warship by a torpedo since World War II. At least 87 people have been confirmed dead by the Sri Lankan authorities so far. Nearly 180 Iranian personnel were on board the warship. As per reports, this is one of the third Iranian warships which has been sunk. Another Iranian warship, which has now taken refuge at the Colombo port, is also vulnerable to a potential attack, as it is technically in a foreign territory.
An American submarine sunk an Iranian warship that thought it was safe in international waters. Instead, it was sunk by a torpedo. Quiet death. The first sinking of an enemy ship by a torpedo since World War II.
While the US had earlier revealed that 50,000 troops, 2,000 fighter jets, 2 aircraft carriers and bombers are participating in the operation, Hegseth has said more troops will arrive soon, asserting that the US will win this war decisively. He also claimed a decrease in the number of missiles and drones being fired by Iran. He also stated that more waves of strikes are coming, aiming to destroy Iran's ballistic missile systems and navy. He added that the US and Israel will achieve complete air domination of Iran within a week's time. That's what he has claimed. With the war now spreading across multiple paths, the casualties continue to mount. Let's just take stock of the situation. Iran's death toll has now surged to 1,045, whereas multiple US military personnel have been killed till now. Israel's intensified attacks have resulted in at least 52 deaths in Lebanon so far. In fact, explosions rocked Tehran as the IDF launched its 10th wave of broad strikes on Iran's capital, targeting paramilitary force, Basij, and international security command centers. The IDF claimed to have downed an Iranian Air Force fighter jet over Tehran. And according to the Israeli army, this marks the first such shoot down of a manned fighter aircraft by this fighter jet. Footage released by Israel showed the strikes it carried out on an Iranian army helicopter and soldiers who had activated the defense systems. Since the start of the operation, Israel has claimed to have neutralized at least 300 Iranian missile launchers. Meanwhile, Beirut woke up to sounds of huge blasts and drones whizzing overhead as Israel conducted strikes on Lebanon yet again. This time, an underground weapons storage facility and command centers allegedly used by Hezbollah were targeted. Overall, more than 250 Hezbollah targets have been struck over the past 2 days itself. On the other hand, meanwhile, Iran continued to target U.S. assets. For instance, an Iranian drone slammed into a parking lot outside the U.S. Embassy in Dubai, sparking a fire. The IRGC also claimed to have destroyed the second American THAAD anti-missile defense system stationed at the base in UAE. Today alone, UAE intercepted 3 ballistic missiles and 121 drones unleashed by Tehran. The conflict has spread to Turkey as well. Turkey's defense ministry has claimed now a ballistic missile launched by Iran heading towards Turkish airspace was destroyed by NATO air defense systems. Israel's Haifa naval base also came under attack from missiles fired by Hezbollah, most of which were reportedly shot down. Similarly, munition debris fell in Tel Aviv, injuring a woman after Iran launched a barrage of missiles. Earlier in the morning, it launched 40 missiles at US and Israeli targets, triggering siren alarms all over Israel. Additionally, an Iranian missile hit the US military base of Al Udeid in Qatar once again. However, Qatar's defense ministry confirming that there were no casualties. It has already downed 10 drones and 2 cruise missiles today. Saudi Arabia also bearing the brunt of what's been happening, Iran's aggression, as an Iranian drone reportedly hit Aramco's Ras Tanura refinery, and it has been shut since Monday due to an earlier drone attack. IRGC has also claimed full control of the Strait of Hormuz, warning vessels not to transit the crucial waterway. Nearly 1/5 of the world's total oil consumption, remember, passes through this strait. And this comes in the wake of US President Donald Trump signaling that US Navy could start escorting oil tankers through this waterway if required. Now, Iran has also made it clear that it will not buckle down. Its judiciary chief, in fact, has stressed that anyone who aids Iran's enemies will be severely dealt with. Tehran also ruled out negotiations with the US over a nuclear deal, citing lack of trust in Americans. Listen to this.
We have no trust in the Americans, and we have no basis for any negotiations with them. This is the important point. We can continue the war.
Not all allies are backing the US, though. Very important. For instance, Spain has barred the country from using its military bases as part of its operation against Iran. Even though Trump threatened to halt all trade with Spain, its prime minister refused to become party to the war.
We will not be complicit in something that is bad for the world and that is also contrary to our values and interests, simply out of fear of retaliation from some.
And with Trump asserting that US munition stockpiles are at a record level and Iran's sustained fight back as of now, it looks like an early cessation of hostilities remains unlikely. At this point, joining me on the broadcast is a very special guest, Douglas Macgregor, former senior advisor to the US Secretary of Defense. He is also a Gulf War combat veteran and PhD in international relations. Appreciate very much your being here. I have to begin by asking you for your comments on what just unfolded with the war now spilling beyond West Asia. Also, help us understand who really is in charge and controlling the war right now. Is it the US or Israel? Is it Trump or is it Netanyahu?
These are very good questions. We need to understand that the United States is trying to bomb Iran, a country half the size of India, into submission to Israel's demands. There is no strategy. This is producing a catastrophe, and the world is paying for it. Right now, the Straits of Hormuz are closed. That's not likely to change. And if we try to interfere with that, we'll lose whatever ships we send through it. And that's a disaster for India because 50% of your oil, 60% of your liquefied natural gas all come through the Straits of Hormuz. And in the meantime, the Iranians are hitting Israeli citizens now, or cities now, with missiles that are flying at 4,000 miles per hour. You can't stop them. You can't shoot them down. Iran has already struck 27 American military bases. Iron Dome can't stop them. Nothing can. A single drone flew more than 1,000 miles and destroyed a British base in Cyprus. Some estimates say that we have perhaps 450 interceptor missiles left in the region. Iran has 10,000, and that number is rising. That's just one category of missiles. So I don't know where President Trump is getting his numbers, but that's simply ridiculous. And I think we have to understand that this war is being fought for one reason and only one reason. And that is that Mr. Netanyahu, with the aid of Zionist billionaires in the United States, has successfully gained control of the policymaking apparatus in Washington, D.C., and is dragging the United States into war.
So are you then saying that this is no longer America first, as Trump has been touting? It now has, in a way, become Israel first there in the United States.
The United States doesn't really play in this. America first is dead as far as this administration is concerned. This is Israel first. And the problem for all of this, as you know, is this is not just an energy story for India and other nations that depend on Gulf oil. It's a food security story. India's national security is on the line. European gas is up 50% and climbing. A global recession is no longer a forecast, it's a reality. There's no end in sight to this militarily. This is going to continue for weeks unless someone steps up, and I don't expect that to happen in the United States, and helps to broker a ceasefire and an end to the conflict.
Trump has also said that if necessary, the United States Navy will begin escorting tankers through the Strait of Hormuz. How feasible is that plan according to you?
It's not. It's ridiculous. The notion that we would send any combatant ships through the Straits of Hormuz is an invitation to disaster. The Iranians will sink them. In fact, we've moved our carrier battle groups as far as we possibly could out of range of their missiles, which of course has created a logistical nightmare for us. We have logistical problems anyway. We don't have access to all the bases that we formerly used. We've got to fall back on Europe in the Mediterranean, and I suspect we'll have to fall back on India's ports as well. So once again, there's no strategy. There was no planning. There was no thinking. Did President Trump call President Modi or the Prime Minister of Japan or the President of South Korea and ask them, how is this going to affect you? This is going to harm you. We need to know before we do anything. He did nothing of the kind. This is a disaster that's not just regional, it's becoming global.
Right. I also have to ask you, what do you make of Iran's resistance right now? Also, the way Iran's drones particularly are becoming a headache for the United States. Did America not anticipate this would happen?
You know, these kinds of things could have been anticipated. We've watched drone warfare develop inside Ukraine during the war between Russia and Ukraine. We have an appreciation for it on what I would call the battlefield level or tactical level. We completely excluded the possibility of its operational and strategic impact. And so, no, we were not prepared at all. The bottom line is this, I think. As we look at the Persian Gulf today, the American era in the Gulf is really ending. This war is going to sweep the United States out of the Persian Gulf. The damage is enormous. Will it be rebuilt? We'll see. Will it be financed? Who knows? Someone will shape it. My point is this. We're learning the hard way that sovereignty in 2026 means, do you control your own fuel, your food, your fertilizer, and your defense supply chains? Right now, I would argue the world needs India. We need a trusted, neutral voice with relationships in Tehran, Moscow, Beijing, and Washington simultaneously. Only India really fits that description. No other major power has that capability. So I sincerely hope that the Indian government will realize whether it likes it or not, it's being dragged into this war. And they need to be the ones to stand up and help get us out of it.
Right. Pete Hegseth also earlier claiming that this is, of course, what he said just a while ago, that the U.S. and Israel, he claims, will have complete air domination of Iran within a week's time. Do you really see that happening?
No. We have it right now over northwestern Iran. Can we extend it over the whole country? I don't know. I think it's going to take time. Remember, Iran is half the size of India. And Iran has developed what we call distributed command and control. And they have missile facilities, launch facilities, air and missile defense facilities all over that country. We don't even know with certainty where they all are. So we're trying to find them, but we're not having much impact on them. And the numbers of missiles and drones that are being launched against us in the Gulf, in the entire Middle Eastern region, is actually rising. More and more are being launched. So I don't know where President Trump gets these estimates. I suppose he's getting them from the Department of War, but I have no idea. I just don't see any evidence for these claims that are being made right now.
What about China and Russia? What role do you see them playing here?
Well, China is involved already. Now, the Chinese have built up an enormous strategic reserve of oil. So the shutdown of the Persian Gulf is not nearly as damaging to China as many anticipated. There were actually foolish people in America that thought this war might be a good idea because it would harm China. It's harming India, it's harming Japan, South Korea. It's not harming China at this point. The Chinese are not going to allow Iran to be utterly destroyed. Neither will Russia. And that's very, very obvious because Iran has a critical role to play, not just in the region, but globally. They're part of BRICS. They're part of the One Belt, One Road project, which is designed to ultimately connect all the nations on the Eurasian continent. So they're not going to allow that to happen. Now, at what point do they involve themselves? I don't know. The more important question at this stage is, when does Israel say it's had enough? Israel is being utterly destroyed. And when do the Israelis stand up and say, if this doesn't stop, we will use a nuclear weapon? That's my concern, because that would be a catastrophe for the world.
All right, we're leaving it there for the moment. Thanks very much for being here and sharing those perspectives.
Thank you.
Now, amid the renewed strikes by Israel and the US, Iran is stepping up its retaliatory attacks on American assets across the region. From military facilities to consulates, American assets have come under threat from Iranian missiles and drones. So far, Iranian retaliatory attacks on American bases have been reported in Iraq, Kuwait, Jordan, Bahrain, Qatar, the UAE, Saudi Arabia. Those attacked, including the Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, which is, by the way, the largest US base in the region. Also the Al Dhafra Air Base in the UAE, the US Navy's 5th Fleet Headquarters in Bahrain, the Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia, and the Erbil Air Base in Iraq. US Logistics Base in Kuwait, the Jebel Ali Port in the UAE have also been hit. That's what the map looks like as of now. Not just military facilities, even diplomatic hubs have come under attack. So far, the US consulate in Dubai, Riyadh, and Kuwait City have been struck by Iranian drones. And the attacks have prompted the US to close its embassies in Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Lebanon. And as the attacks escalate, the US is feeling the heat. It has already issued evacuation orders for non-emergency personnel in Bahrain and Jordan. It has also urged American citizens across 14 countries in West Asia to leave immediately as the war spirals across the region. So far, 6 American personnel have also been killed. Reports suggesting the US has lost nearly $2 billion worth of military assets in the 5 days of this war. And among the most significant losses being the $1.1 billion early warning radar system at the Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. Another significant loss has been the radar associated with the THAAD missile defense system in the UAE's base. As Iran hits back relentlessly, the US and Israel, meanwhile, intensifying their attack on Iranian missile bases in a bid to try and blunt Tehran's counterattacks. The US also claiming it has hit several Iranian ballistic missile facilities, degrading Tehran's missile capability. But cheap Iranian suicide drones, especially the Shahed drones, emerging as a bigger problem for the United States. The cost-to-kill ratio is heavily skewed in Iran's favor. Drone swarms can overwhelm radar systems, forcing the US to burn through its limited inventory of high-end interceptors. And while we track all those developments, there is another key question hanging in the air. Who will be Iran's next supreme leader? As the country's leadership reels from the killing of Khamenei, the focus has reportedly shifted to one person in Tehran's corridors of power, the son of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. And according to a report by the New York Times, Iran's powerful assembly of experts, the clerical body tasked with choosing Iran's supreme leader, has held a series of urgent meetings following the deaths of Khamenei. And among the potential successors, the 56-year-old second son of the late leader reportedly standing out. According to the report, clerics were even considering announcing him as his father's successor as early as Wednesday morning, but reportedly withheld this, fearing that it could expose him as a target for the US and Israel. Fars News Agency, affiliated with the IRGC, has said Israel struck a building in Qom on Tuesday, where the assembly had planned to convene and elect the new supreme leader of the country. But the building was empty. Israel's defense minister, meanwhile, has also warned that any successor to Khamenei will be an unequivocal target for elimination, emphasizing that Israel, with US support, will continue to strike Iran's capabilities while working towards conditions for a regime change. While he's never held any official position of power, for years he has reportedly operated at the heart of Iran's power structure. In fact, he studied Islamic theology in Qom and has reportedly built strong ties with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the military force that safeguards the Islamic Republic and reportedly served during the Iran-Iraq War. Some analysts, in fact, regard him as deeply embedded within Iran's security and intelligence networks, while many believe he has long helped coordinate major political and military decisions behind the scenes. His potential rise perhaps signaling continuity of the hardline establishment. And reports claiming that elements within the IRGC strongly favor his appointment, and based on the fact that he understands the security structure and can potentially also steer Iran through escalating confrontation with the United States and Israel. Other names have also surfaced. Alireza Arafi, a senior cleric and jurist, remains in contention, reportedly. So does Syed Hassan Khamenei, the grandson of Islamic Republic founder Ruhollah Khomeini. Both are reportedly viewed as comparatively moderate voices within the establishment. But the name of Khamenei's son, the proximity to the security elite, also reportedly giving him a distinct advantage at this point. Beyond politics, little else is known about his personal life as such. His wife, his mother, were killed alongside his father in the strikes. He reportedly has 3 children, but details about them are scarce. Western intelligence assessments also link him to an extensive global financial network. He reportedly oversees investments stretching from Tehran to Dubai and Frankfurt. Reports describe layers of shell companies managing assets tied to oil revenues. The holdings allegedly including shipping operations in the Persian Gulf, bank accounts in Switzerland, luxury properties in the UK. Financial trails reportedly run through the UAE and offshore jurisdictions like St. Kitts and Nevis and the Isle of Man. Despite maintaining a low public profile as such, she has reportedly built influence quietly as well as methodically. And the escalating war in West Asia is fast becoming a major geopolitical and energy headache for China, as Iran tightens control over one of the world's most critical maritime choke points, the Strait of Hormuz. Since the outbreak of the hostilities in West Asia, Tehran has effectively blocked passage through this waterway, a very crucial one, with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps claiming complete control and warning that any vessel attempting to cross risks missile or drone attacks. For Beijing, the stakes are higher. Half of its oil imports are from Iran, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, the UAE, Kuwait, and Oman, which transport their crude oil through the Strait of Hormuz. Last year, it purchased an average of 1.38 million barrels of Iranian oil per day. On the whole, it bought 87% of Iran's crude oil, and this accounted for more than 13% of China's oil imports. Now, this works to Beijing's advantage in a way, as refiners reportedly get a discount of 8 to 10 US dollars per barrel on purchase of Iranian oil. What threatens China even more is the ongoing situation in the Strait of Hormuz, specifically with the IRGC threatening to attack any vessels that pass through it. And this might cause a devastating impact as far as China is concerned. For China, methanol has also emerged as a critical vulnerability. Iran, remember, is the world's second largest methanol producer and a key supplier for China. The prices of methanol in China have already jumped more than 7% amid the supply fears. Port inventories stood at 1.47 million tons at the end of February, with analysts warning of rapid drawdowns if the disruptions continue. Beyond methanol, crude oil, LNG, and petrochemical flows face similar uncertainty, increasing cost pressures across manufacturing chains. A prolonged blockade would not only disrupt global supply chains, but could also trigger a major energy shock for the world's second largest economy. From the outset of the conflict itself, China called for an immediate ceasefire and the protection of the shipping lanes, remember. The Chinese foreign minister has urged Gulf countries to unite against external interference and criticized US and Israeli military actions. Beijing has been actively engaging the Gulf countries to try and protect its core energy interests. Meanwhile, Iran has reportedly informed China that only Chinese vessels would be allowed safe passage through the strait as a gesture of gratitude for Beijing's political support. And this is a major mover and a proof of strategic and energy ties between the two countries. The Strait of Hormuz, remember, connects major oil producers, including Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, the UAE, to global markets through the Gulf of Oman and the Arabian Sea. Nearly 20% of the world's daily oil consumption flows through this narrow channel, which measures just 33 kilometers at its tightest point. But the crucial question also remains over, is the strait truly safe even for Chinese ships in the midst of this full-blown regional war and the situation there? While Iran may offer assurances that it will not target Chinese cargo, there are no guarantees as such that its adversaries in the war will exercise the same restraint. Trump, on the other hand, has said the US Navy is prepared to escort tankers through the strait if necessary. He vowed to ensure the free flow of energy to the world. For China, the war in West Asia is no longer a distant conflict. It's a direct threat to its energy security, economic stability, and global supply chains. And here's a look at what else is lined up for you on the show tonight. Nepal is voting tomorrow. We tell you all about the key issues dominating this election, the situation on the ground. Also, where are the women candidates? We tell you what the numbers look like. Why has Kenya declared a war on snake bites? How bad are things there? We tell you all about this in just a bit. Also getting you glimpses of the Holi celebrations from different parts as the Festival of Colors is celebrated. All this and more coming up. Welcome back. Thanks very much for staying on with us. US intelligence is reportedly preparing to arm Kurdish militias in a bid to spark a popular uprising inside Iran's western provinces, a move that Washington reportedly hopes will weaken the country from within. And according to reports, the CIA is in active discussions with Iranian Kurdish opposition factions and leaders based in Iraq's Kurdistan region about supplying weapons and support for operations against Iranian security forces. The Kurdish armed groups already have thousands of fighters, remember, deployed along the Iraq-Iran border. Several have reportedly issued statements in recent days, signaling that they may soon act, and have even called for defections from Iran's army. And on Tuesday, Iran's powerful Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps said it has struck Kurdish positions with drone attacks, perhaps a clear message from Tehran that it will not tolerate any expansion of hostilities on its western flank. And amid all of this, US President Donald Trump has reportedly personally spoken with the Kurdish political leaders, including the head of the Democratic Party of Iranian Kurdistan, reportedly as part of the broader coordination on military strategy. The Democratic Party of Iranian Kurdistan is one of the groups reportedly targeted by the IRGC. So could the US be trying to engage Kurdish forces with the Iranian troops in the West, drawing Tehran's focus away from major cities and potentially creating openings for internal revolt? But even as Washington pushes forward, a critical question remains. Will the Kurds take these arms and actually act? Or will they simply end up holding weapons with little more than token engagements? You see, any effort to arm the Kurdish fighters will basically depend on cooperation from Iraqi Kurdish authorities, reportedly, who control the territory that weapons would transit and use as potential staging grounds. Kurdish rebels have for years opposed Iran and carried out various attacks, especially in Iran's Kurdistan province, as well as other western provinces. The Kurdish people are an ethnic minority without an independent state. An estimated 25 to 30 million Kurds live across a region spanning parts of Turkey, Iraq, Iran, Syria, and Armenia. Most are Sunni Muslims, though Kurdish communities reflect diverse cultural and political traditions. Kurds achieved a degree of self-rule only in Iraq, where the semi-autonomous Kurdistan regional government governs the north. The United States has worked closely with the Kurdish forces for decades, and they were central to US efforts against ISIS in Iraq as well as Syria. Oil prices are soaring with disruption to the crucial Strait of Hormuz owing to the ongoing military operation there in Iran started by US and Israel. Amid all of this, Russia is potentially emerging as a silent winner of this war in a way. This speculation is gaining ground as Russia is the third largest oil producer in the world, accounting for about 11% of the world's crude oil supplies. It is also worth noting that Russia, along with Iran and Venezuela, are the world's top producers of heavy crude oil that is exported to many countries to be processed by their refineries. With the war raging in Iran, a pause in its exports can compel oil refineries designed to process heavy crude oil to rely mostly on Moscow. And as per reports, India might be a big beneficiary of Moscow's oil diplomacy. The Kremlin is reportedly ready to meet up to 40% of India's crude oil needs, offset West Asian supply disruptions. At present, there is about 9.5 million barrels of Russian crude oil in vessels near Indian waters, which can arrive within weeks. Now, this also assumes significance as India reportedly has crude oil stocks covering only about 25 days of demand. With about 40% of India's oil imports passing through the Strait of Hormuz, the near closure of this route can have a huge impact. On an average, Indian refiners process 5.6 million barrels of crude every day. While India has been a steadfast buyer of Russian oil, its imports of crude from Moscow fell to 1.1 million barrels per day in January, the lowest since November 2022. As India was negotiating the trade deal with the US, and with US President Donald Trump dropping 25% tariffs on India for its purchase of Russian oil in February, claiming that New Delhi had agreed to stop buying oil from Moscow. The government's future course of action will be closely examined as well. Another gain from the war as such could be Moscow's attempt to act as a mediator in the talks between Tehran and Washington. Already the Kremlin has made it clear that Russian president will make every effort to ease the tensions in the region. He is also set to convey concerns of Arab nations regarding strikes on their infrastructure to the Iranians. While a ceasefire with Ukraine remains elusive, it seems that the West Asia war might provide an opportunity for Russia to try and enhance its global role. Protests are raging in Pakistan after Khamenei's assassination. While next-door neighbor Iran is under attack from the US and Israel, its attacks on Saudi Arabian territory have also put Pakistan in a fix. It is clearly spooked by the Iran war. The Pakistan Defense Minister Khwaja Asif, for instance, has raked up a quote-unquote Zionist conspiracy. He dubbed the Iran war as an attempt to bring Israel's influence up to his country's border. Asif went on to add that Iran, Afghanistan and India will join hands to turn Pakistan into a vassal state. And this assumes significance amid Pakistan's ongoing war with Afghanistan. While the Afghanistan government has claimed to have killed 150 military personnel, Pakistan has alleged that 464 Taliban fighters have been eliminated. Pakistan is also facing the prospect of being embroiled into the West Asia war in the scenario of Saudi Arabia deciding to launch retaliatory strikes against Iran. This is because of the Strategic Mutual Defense Agreement signed by Pakistan and Saudi Arabia in Iran last year. While specific details were not disclosed as such, the two countries pledged that any attack on either country would be treated as an act of aggression against both. Pakistan's Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister making a big claim in this regard. Speaking on the floor of the National Assembly, he hinted that he told the Iranians that Pakistan will have to militarily aid Riyadh if it is attacked due to the Defense Pact. And according to him, this helped deter heavier Iranian strikes on Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia ke saath ek strategic mutual defense agreement.
We have strategic mutual defense pact with Saudi Arabia. The whole world knows about it. We are bound by that. I immediately reminded our brothers in the leadership in Iran that please keep that in mind. They asked for some assurances. They told me to tell them that their soil should not be used. I took those assurances and gave them. So Alhamdulillah, you saw that perhaps the minimum reaction at this time has not been against Saudi Arabia and Oman.
The claim coming days after at least 25 people lost their lives when thousands hit the streets in multiple parts of Pakistan to protest against the US and Israel following the killing of Khamenei. The protest took a rather drastic turn in Karachi as guards at the US consulate opened fire on protesters who tried to breach the compound's outer wall. Locals were incensed as 10 protesters were killed in the firing. Subsequently, the Sindh government had to announce a high-level inquiry as well. Lahore, the hometown of the Pakistan Prime Minister, also witnessed chaotic scenes, with protesters setting fire to the entrance of the US consulate. Considering the worsening security situation, the US cancelled all visa appointments in Pakistan until Friday. In wake of the growing internal turmoil, Pakistan faces a rather tough diplomatic challenge, as it is increasingly being sandwiched between Iran and Saudi Arabia. The war in West Asia rapidly deepening the humanitarian crisis in the Gaza Strip. After Israel closed all border crossings following the escalation in the war with Iran, fuel and food supplies running dangerously low. Aid agencies warning that time is running out for millions. Take a look.
Israel shut all crossings into the Gaza Strip after its joint strikes on Iran. Officials say the borders cannot operate safely during active hostilities. The move has sealed off Gaza, home to 2 million people. After years of war, the territory relies almost entirely on imported food, fuel, and medical supplies.
Families are waiting for aid, waiting for food parcels, waiting for food and drink. All of this has been halted because of the closure of the crossings. A few days ago, the World Central Kitchen announced the suspension of its services due to the crossings being closed and lack of aid entering.
Fuel stocks are nearly depleted. Hospital generators, water pumps, and sanitation systems could soon shut down without fresh deliveries.
Tomatoes are now $6.49. A bag of flour is $64.8. Ever since they heard about the closure of the crossings, we call on everyone with a living conscience to pressure Israel to open the crossings.
Humanitarian groups say food supplies may last only days. Bakeries have flour for about 10 days, and aid parcels could run out within 2 weeks. Last year, a total siege led to famine-like conditions. Hundreds were killed trying to reach distribution sites run by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation.
If the crossings remain closed and aid in all its forms is not allowed in, whether medical, food, shelter supplies and other basic necessities for Palestinian citizens, at the forefront of that, the water sector and the maintenance of water networks, we will be facing a dangerous situation, and a return to famine may be in a form worse than before.
With West Asia remaining on the edge, panic buying swept markets. Prices of flour and rice spiked, making basics harder to afford. For ordinary Gazans, this is yet again a war they did not choose. Civilians in the Gaza Strip are once again bearing the brunt. Families already displaced by years of fighting now face empty markets and staring at another prospect of humanitarian disaster.
Nepal goes to the polls tomorrow, the high-stakes national polls taking place to decide the fate of the country following last year's Gen Z protest. But a key question also is over the women candidates. Where are they? Nepalese women, remember, were at the forefront of last year's anti-corruption protest that toppled the government of KP Sharma Oli. They demanded an end to entrenched political elites and called for a new generation of leaders. In the aftermath, Nepal saw a historic moment when the next leader took over, the country's first woman prime minister to head the interim government. Yet, as voters prepare to cast their ballots tomorrow, women remain largely absent from the direct electoral contests. Out of more than 3,400 candidates running, only about 10% are women. And this is despite Nepal's constitution mandating that at least 1/3 of the parliamentary seats be held by women. This provision was introduced after the 2006 People's Uprising that abolished the monarchy. Key campaign issues have included governance, corruption, unemployment, and the country's struggling economy. There is this once quiet constituency that has turned into the most watched political arena in the country in a way. Rapper turned politician Balendra Shah, who is seen as a Gen Z leader, taking on former Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli in that high-stakes head-to-head contest from that constituency. Both of them have campaigned very extensively in this constituency. This is Oli's political fortress in a way. He has won parliamentary polls from the district 6 times out of 7 and made it his traditional stronghold. And Shah, on the other hand, has made a bold move. Instead of contesting from a safer urban seat or his power base in Kathmandu, he chose to challenge Oli directly on his home turf. Let's get to the numbers. Nepal has more than 18 million registered voters, including around 800,000 first-time voters. More than 3,400 candidates are contesting the election, in which voters will elect 275 members in the House of Representatives under Nepal's mixed electoral system. As per the mixed electoral system, 165 seats will be contested directly and parties will elect candidates in the remaining 110 as per their vote share. Switching gears for now, mourners gathered in Mexico for the funeral of El Mencho days after he was killed in that military operation. A gold casket believed to carry his body was escorted under heavy security. Take a look. On to Kenya now, which is facing a major snake bites crisis, prompting the government, scientists, doctors, volunteers to launch a practical war to tackle this menace. Take a look. Holders India are all set to lock horns against England in the T20 World Cup semi-finals at the Wankhede Stadium on Thursday. And ahead of the game, the men in blue on Tuesday decided to change the timing of the practice session due to the lunar eclipse. In its official communication, the Indian board had informed that the Indian team will train from 6 to 9 p.m. in Mumbai. However, the team management decided to change the timing after they found out that the lunar eclipse will start at 3:20 p.m. and end at 6:47 p.m. As per Hindu rituals, the team found it inauspicious to train during the period as it brings bad luck. The floodlights flickered on at 6:55 p.m. and about 10 minutes later, the players took the field at around 7:20 p.m. Reports suggesting the team wanted to begin their preparations on a positive note. India's path to the semi-finals has not been straightforward. Despite finishing top in their group stage, they faced tough tests in the Super 8s. Their campaign suffered a setback with a heavy 76-run loss to South Africa. The hosts responded strongly, bouncing back with a win over Zimbabwe at the Wankhede Stadium. They carried that momentum into a high-stakes clash against the West Indies at the Eden Gardens in Kolkata. Chasing 196, India overcame an early stumble to seal a thrilling 5-wicket victory with 4 balls remaining. Sanju Samson starred with the bat, producing a superb unbeaten 97 of 50 deliveries. A win in Thursday's semi-final will see India meet the winner of South Africa versus New Zealand match in the final. And let's take a look now at some of the visuals coming in from across India as people celebrated the Festival of Colours, Holi. And on that note, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas Tonight. This is me, Molly Gambhir, signing off. Thanks very much for watching.
Where darkness hides behind every corner. Where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders. Psychopaths who defy explanation. International war crimes. And millions swindled in financial fraud. The victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Prime Crime is your front row seat to darkness. Get the latest updates.
Destroy their
breaking
missiles
news.
And raise their...
Credible, clear, continuous. Experts across aisles. Diverse voices, one platform. WION World is one.
India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one. From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.